What's up, kid folk? Welcome to the #1 college football show. I am your host, RJ Young. Thank you for watching on the Fox Sports app, listening wherever you get your podcast, or watching on YouTube. Look, we're doing our Week 7 mailbag here, and I'm very excited about this. But before I tell you why I'm excited about this, I want to bring in producer Tyler Wojak, who is always my partner on this segment in this show. Tyler, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here, but I'm a little bit more concerned. How are you doing, RJ? I know you've had a rough past couple weeks here, past 3 weeks, really.
Well, we asked the question last week, which one of our teams was going to finish the year with a better record, Oklahoma or Notre Dame? And y'all picked up a win against the top 25 BYU, and we got destroyed by Texas in the worst loss ever for an Oklahoma team in that rivalry in the history of things. So yeah, I've been kind of all over the map here, Tyler. Tell me what we got in store for the folks for this Week 7 mailbag.
Well, look, misery usually breeds company. So you asked the question on Twitter, do you think Oklahoma fans should panic? And I think that's where we should start today, because as I was going through some of the replies, you had more replies to this tweet than any other question you've posed in the past. So I'm going through them. I found a bunch of different answers, a bunch of Oklahoma fans in a bunch of different places. So let's start with our first one. This one comes from a vegan debates, who says, no, Brent Venables got this. Riley left this program in disarray by building a weak defense and siphoning elite skill position players like Caleb Williams. Texas scored 45 in 2020 and 48 in 2021. The difference is that Oklahoma had Caleb and others to bail them out previously. So a vegan debates is low on the panic meter, I would say.
I think that's generally inclined with what I think, but also points to a vegan debates for two reasons. One, acknowledging that the defense has not been strong at Oklahoma since Lincoln Riley took over as head coach. That's just a fact, taking a look at the statistics. And also, not just that Caleb Williams is not there, but neither is Spencer Rattler. So that's two 5-star quarterbacks that both went into the transfer portal. And you brought in a guy who's good in Dillon Gabriel, but he's not Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams. I think that's a strong take. It's a strong take.
Yeah, and that kind of just shows you how successful Oklahoma has been with their quarterbacks. You guys have been on a crazy run as of late. So when Dillon Gabriel isn't living up to the standard, I think that says more about the standard and just how high it is. All right, let's get to our next one. This one comes from John Saber. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, John. John came at us with maybe my favorite response of all. It's a GIF from Toy Story. RJ, I don't know the last time you've seen that movie, but the GIF says, "This is no time to panic." And Woody says, "This is the perfect time to panic." So John's not feeling as confident as a vegan debates.
My man Saber, producer at WJOX. We talk a bunch about college football. We talk a bunch about the USFL, which is quite frankly right around the corner. That's wild. But I think that's also a great use of that GIF. I've seen that GIF many times because, well, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old goddaughter, goddaughters, plural. And yeah, we get down on the Toy Story. They're not so high on Lightyear, but the four Toy Stories, I see them all the time. Yeah, well, and I also get where he's coming from. He's used to seeing an Oklahoma team that the SEC kind of, sort of has to think about, if not worry about, right? Because it ain't like they've lost those games in the college football playoff. But it's going to be an experience for teams that have expected to see Oklahoma in that top 10, top 5 rankings going into the college football playoff selection committee rankings coming out, I believe, November 1st, to not see Oklahoma anywhere near it, right? As I have said before, it is wild. Like, college football has chosen violence because Kansas is ranked and Oklahoma is not, Tyler.
I know, and it's weird because Oklahoma has been such a staple in the top 10 over the past decade, really. So when they're not in it, yeah, I think it's not surprising that fans would be a little on edge and might react a little bit strongly or might even overreact, you could say. But this one brings us to our next response. This one comes from Jake Boggs, who says, "A little, but not a lot. I'm curious how one could panic a little, but not a lot." I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I'm going to ride with my man Jake here and say you can panic a little because people can see a duck on a pond, right? On the surface, everything seems fine. Underneath, paddling real fast. And that's kind of like what our hearts are doing, right? We're looking at this and we're watching the way that Oklahoma's getting run by Texas in a way that they've never been run before. And it's not just that you got run by Texas. It's the 3rd loss in a row. And as an Oklahoma fan, I have not seen 3 losses in a row in a very, very long time And now headed up against Kansas this week, trying to stave off 4 losses in a row for the first time since 1996. Tyler, I don't want to put you on Front Street right here, but I'm gonna. How old were you in 1996?
I was a few months old during that football season. I was born in April of 1996, so it's been a while.
My goodness, man. I was 9, and I just don't have any memory of being that bad. And that is what I think a little bit of panic looks like.
I can understand that. And this one, our last response to this, I think might be the most measured take, and I think the one that I might agree with the most, because this one comes from Ben. Ben says, not necessarily honestly. It takes time to gather the pieces and rebuild. I know it's a spot that Oklahoma isn't used to, but I wouldn't necessarily be panicking, not yet at least. So it seems like Ben is sort of on the same page here with Jake Boggs.
Yeah, I understand, and I appreciate that Ben is not hitting the panic button this soon. But this is also where I want to lean in on this topic in particular, because I asked this question because I wanted to hear what you had to say, and I'm grateful to the 300 plus of you that decided to give this question your attention, because it is one that I have had to counter and or talk about basically since Oklahoma took its first loss of the season, right? Unexpected to Kansas State at home at night. And Oklahoma fans love a night game, right? And they showed out for it. And now we're at a point where it doesn't feel like this is the Oklahoma team that people have grown accustomed to. And I want to underscore accustomed in that statement. Okay. Oklahoma has done nothing but win since 1999. All right. I, as an Oklahoma fan, have not experienced a losing season, even a season at 500 since 1999, right? I was 11 the last time that Oklahoma was bad. I'm a 35-year-old man getting talked about college football for a living, got my Yankees job. It's been that much time. We also had a historic run of quarterback play at the University of Oklahoma, from Josh Heupel to Jason White, to Nate Hibble, to Paul Thompson. You were able to overcome Rhett Bomar being an idiot into Sam Bradford, 3-star recruit, develops into a number 1 overall pick and a Heisman winner. Landry Jones, who's got every passing record of note as a quarterback at Oklahoma, into Trevor Knight, who we thought was not great, beating Alabama and Nick Saban in the Sugar Bowl, into Baker Mayfield walking on, showing up at Bob Stoops' doorstep saying, I want to play at Oklahoma, winning a Heisman, into Kyler Murray, who is probably the best Texas high school football player of all time, into Jalen Hurts, who just looked around and said, hey, Coach Saban, I think I ought to transfer. And he says, okay, where are you thinking? I don't know. Where are you thinking? I'm thinking you should go to the place that has the best offense in football. Oh, that's Oklahoma. Then you should go there. And then we get to a space where we're talking about Caleb Williams committing to Oklahoma as the number 1 quarterback in his class, 5-star recruit, behind the other number 1 quarterback in his class, a 5-star recruit in Spencer Rattler. That's just the quarterbacks, right? There's also been this historic run of stability at the University of Oklahoma in its head coaching capacity. Bob Stoops hands the baton off to Lincoln Riley, okay? Lincoln Riley decides to quite literally drop the baton. He ain't handed it to nobody. Whoever wants to pick it up can go pick it up. In the span of time that Tennessee has had a 15-year losing streak to the University of Alabama, Oklahoma doesn't know what that means. Ohio State has had a losing season in the past 20 years. Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Michigan, LSU, Alabama. I can keep going here, all right? What I'm saying is, it's not just that Oklahoma fans have been spoiled. It's that all of us have been spoiled, because there are those of you that simply have never, ever seen Oklahoma be bad. I got 22 and 23-year-old children graduating from college who do not know what it means for Oklahoma not to go bowling. Not to go bowling. I asked one of my friends, and I say one of my friends, it happens to be one of my bosses on the show, when's the last time his team, or how many losing seasons has he seen since he became a fan of his team? And he's like, 9. I think I've had 3 winning seasons. And I'm going, I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that is. I have forgotten it. I have seen the invention of the iPhone, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I've seen YouTube become a global power. All right? Before I seen Oklahoma be bad. And now at 3-3, we got folks that are absolutely slamming on the panic button, saying, hey, look, man, I think Oklahoma's going to be bad. All right, let's say you're right. Let's say that Oklahoma doesn't win another football game this year. Okay, everybody gets their time in the dunk tank. Everybody gets their opportunity to come after you. But I think this is wild as we are getting close to. I like to believe that I got a backbone. Not I like to believe. I got 3 pro fights. I got scars on my knuckles. I laid my motorcycle down at 70 miles an hour and walked away from it. What I'm saying here is I'm not going to scratch my head unless it itches. And I'm not getting nervous because things aren't going my way. And I'm from the state of Oklahoma, which just means you ball up your fist, you go back to work. You put your work boots on, you drink your coffee, you punch your clock. If things go your way, great. If not, you still have to go show up to work tomorrow. And that's Brent Venables. He shows up to work the next day. He says, hey, look, development. That's what this game is about. It's getting better each week while the games are getting harder every week because injuries happen and more hits you take, the harder it is to keep playing football. Okay? Nobody knows that better than that guy. And now after 6 games, we got folks talking about, hey, I don't know about Brent Venables. I'm going, hey, look here. Get to year 5, then tell me you don't know about Brent Venables. Until then, just be quiet and let the man work. Tyler, any of that seem out of line to you?
No, I agree with everything you just said, and I think this is sort of the nature of college football fans. But I will say, give credit to a lot of the Sooners fans who are in your mentions. I feel like a lot of their takes were measured. They sort of agreed with Ben or along the same lines. And RJ, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the amount of new players in the Oklahoma roster this year, wasn't it close to 50?
Yeah, and not everybody's a 5-star recruit, guys.
Right. And I think, with the transfer portal, people think it's easier for a player to go to a new school and acclimate immediately and everything just goes smoothly. That's rarely the case. When you have 50 players on a roster, 50 new players, it's going to be a difficult circumstance, especially for a first-time head coach. So, yes, 3-3, not an ideal start. Oklahoma has had a history of success, especially recently. So, look, and I know as a Notre Dame guy, I always put it through a Notre Dame lens. Notre Dame went 4-8 in 2016. They won 54 games the next 5 years. You can bounce back quickly. I've seen it. A lot of other programs have done it. And personally, I don't see any reason why Oklahoma couldn't do the same.
I think that's a great way to leave it there, man, because I believe that Oklahoma's going to be back. You believe Oklahoma's going to be back. It's just a matter of when.
I agree. All right. We have one last note on Oklahoma. And this one is a fan-submitted question. This one comes from Brian Brooks. Brian asks, what's more likely, 6 L's for the Sooners by season end or USC sells out a home game?
First, Brian, thank you for listening to the show. You'll know that is a favorite drum of mine to beat because I think there's no excuse for any program not to sell out its stadium halfway through the year when your team is undefeated and ranked inside the top 10. That said, I genuinely believe that it's going to be Oklahoma catches 6 L's before USC sells out a home game. I don't know what it's going to take out there. It doesn't seem to register that, hey, the Trojans are good, and I'm saying it, right? You can take it from anybody else living in California that, hey, cool, they're telling you Trojans are good. But the dude that lives in Oklahoma, who knows more about Lincoln Riley than you do, is telling you, nah, USC's good, guys. They're good. They're going to be around. Show up to the games. Sell out the games. And then come back to the show and tell me that you did.
You know what? It might come down to the very last Saturday of the regular season post-Thanksgiving because, 1, Oklahoma's going to be playing their last game. They might have 5 losses going up against Oklahoma State. And 2, that same weekend, USC hosts Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans travel, especially to Los Angeles in November. I think they might sell out, but USC shouldn't get credit for that one. I'm calling it now.
You're going to give credit to an away team for selling out the Coliseum. Hey, that's rough.
It counts all the same. Tyler. There might be a lot of blue and gold in the Coliseum that day. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's move on from Oklahoma. We got a good question here. This one comes from Let's Toast Media talking about the big noon matchup this weekend. Let's Toast Media is obviously high in the Wolverines because they ask, can Michigan win by 20+ over Penn State?
No, is the quick answer to that question. I truly love the audacity, though. You know, as my man Tyler has said throughout the year, it seems to be on sale this year because everybody's coming out with these wild takes. Look, it's not just disrespectful to Penn State. I don't know that you can open up that sort of margin on Penn State. Why? Because it was 10-10 at halftime against Indiana, dog. Tell the truth, shame the devil. All right. You were in a one-possession game with Maryland. All right. Don't do that. Don't do that to Michigan. Just say, hey, look, we play a top 10 team. It's going to be the first top 10 matchup between Michigan and Penn State since 1997. And have fun with that. Why do you expect a team that doesn't actually look to run up the score on Penn State, who has been undefeated and has what I think is the best freshman football player in the sport in Nick Singleton? And by the way, a top 5 rush defense that your man Blake Corum is going to have to try to get through. Nah, man, I don't think Tyler, you know me for being wild with the takes from time to time. Like, I have my reason for being wild with the takes, but, like, that's a wild take. Toast Media, a wild boy.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. I also don't see a path for Michigan to win by 20+. That's just, I mean, it's one thing for Michigan. It's just straight up disrespectful to Penn State and what they've accomplished this season. Like, that's a good football team. And to think that they're just going to get run over. Now, I could see a scenario where Michigan sort of is in control of the whole game, but they could be in control for the whole game and win by 14. Even 17 would seem like a lot. 20+ is asking a lot.
Yeah, and it's asking a lot in a game that I expect to be low scoring, quite honestly. Like, right. I don't expect this one to be that much different from perhaps a Penn State-Michigan game from 1995, which is to say you're going to see a lot of rushing, a lot of rush defense, a lot of clock running, and then it's going to be, 17-14 at the end of the game. It's just, that's a lot of points, man.
I agree. Now watch us next week. Have to come back on the show and apologize to Les Toast Media because Michigan ran up the score. Haven't normally seen that from Jim Harbaugh, but then again, we've been wrong before. All right, this one come from Sans Basing 98. Bear with me because this is a little bit of a long one, but I like this one. All right, RJ, do you realistically see a path for a Big 12 team to get into the playoff? If it's between an undefeated Clemson, USC, or UCLA, or a one-loss Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, or one-loss Ohio State, or team up north, so Michigan, I just can't see an undefeated Oklahoma State or TCU getting in over these teams. So obviously very complex situation here. In this scenario, do you think an undefeated Oklahoma State or TCU would get in over any of these other teams?
There is a special place in my heart for my mans who has created the College Football Playoff Selection Committee doomsday
worst nightmare
narrative. Yeah, because I love those because I hate the college football playoff as it stands. I really, really hate it. And I'm way out in front on that. Okay. I'm saying, please expand the playoff, you cowards, 2 years before everybody else gets on board and before they decide to actually take my advice. That said, you know what the selection committee is about, baby. They about brands, baby. You know, like if it ain't what you think it's going to be about, okay? If you have to explain to somebody what Texas Christian is, that's a good rule of thumb. We're not going to put them in the playoff, all right? They watch as much football as probably you do, which is say not as much as I do, okay? Because it's my job to watch that much football. But Clemson has created a name for itself, right? You're going to take the two teams that play in the SEC championship game. If that's Tennessee and Alabama, if that's Georgia and Alabama, those are going to be your two teams, right? And then you're going to take the Big Ten champ, provided it's Ohio State or Michigan. Where I think this gets interesting is if the Big Ten West champ manages to get a win in the Big Ten title game. I don't think that's going to go their way. I think, as a matter of fact, you can take a look at what Baylor and Texas Christian were doing about 7 years ago, and you can learn from that. Don't nobody sitting in that boardroom at the Gaylord Texan give a good damn about what's going on in the Big 12 outside of Oklahoma and Texas. They don't give a good damn about what's going on in the Pac-12 outside of USC and Oregon, okay? Worst part about all of this is the year the Big Ten could get two teams into the playoff if only they were Ohio State and Michigan playing for the Big Ten championship game and not playing, Thanksgiving weekend, the game. It's a big deal. We like it, but we like a rematch for the title much more. So, chalk. No fun in that, but it's chalk. It's chalk, Tyler.
So you're saying in this scenario, undefeated Oklahoma State or TCU gets left out?
Yes.
It's hard to argue.
I mean, look, who did they beat? Themselves. And who's going to look at that on paper and say, I'm not going to give you credit, Texas Christian, for beating Oklahoma State, or vice versa? Okay? You got a better chance with one loss Texas getting in there as the Big 12 champ than you do either one of those teams being undefeated, simply because nobody respects them in that room.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. This truly would be the nightmare scenario for the College Football Playoff Committee. And I guess my only answer to this is maybe, because I think context is everything in this case. If Ohio State were to just completely drop a game and get blown out in a game where everyone's like, what just happened there? Maybe they'd be left out. But it's hard for me to imagine a one-loss Ohio State or Bama or Georgia, any of those teams getting left out of the College Football Playoff. But hey, this might be the year of chaos. We've teetered with it. We've toyed with it. We have not gone full chaos yet, not like 2007, but maybe. Still a lot of time left. All right, this last question. This one comes from Allie. Now that Matt Rhule has been fired by the Panthers, where do you think he will coach next? I'm glad Allie didn't specify college or NFL, because maybe Matt wants to stay in the NFL despite everyone just assuming he's going to come back to the college ranks.
Or he could do the Todd Haley and decide he wants to coach high school for a little while because he's getting $40 million regardless. Like, my lead to all of this is, what's the buyout? That's the question I ask every time a coach gets fired in season. What's the buyout? Okay, Scott Frost, $15 million. Okay, I think for Paul Chryst, it's $15 million, somewhere in there. David Tepper is going to pay Matt Rhule $834,000 a month over the next 2 years to sit on his couch. Look, man, I don't care if you got a reputation as a program builder, and that's the reason you got the job at Carolina. That's the reason they took you from Temple to Baylor. That's hard. It's really hard. You know what's easy? Sitting on my couch, watching my bank account get filled up with $834,000 every month. Like, if I got to go coach Pee-wee, flag football, high school, and then I get to do something I really like doing without the pressures that come with, am I going to get fired tomorrow? Because that's the worst part about all of this. And that's why the buyout is so high, quite honestly, is because an athletic director, president, or in that case, team owner has to be able to say, I'm going to eat this if I let you down, if I don't let you try to figure this part out. And I think that's entirely fair, because I believe the coaches want to coach. Now, Gus Malzahn took $21 million and decided he wanted to be at Central Florida. More power to him. But I just don't see it. I don't see it at the NFL level. I don't see it at the college level, at least this year. If not next year, then we'll see. But if he wants to get back in the profession, and coaches usually do, that time will come. But as we don't even know what other jobs are going to be available this year, just sit and wait. Because there's no rush. I mean, if you're Matt Rhule and you looked at Nebraska, why would you want that job? Can they pay you $40 million over the next 2 years? No? Okay, is it going to cause more stress in your life and to your family? Are you going to have to uproot them from Carolina to move them to Lincoln, Nebraska? Yeah? Do they want to do that? Probably not, dog. Tyler, none of this makes sense to me. I don't know what we're thinking about sometimes when we think about the coaches who got fired with a lot of money in their... On this show, my producers are Tyler Wojak and Catherine Donnelly. One of the things they got a kick out of is Ed Orgeron saying, how much you going to pay me to go home? $17.5 million? Show me the door. You know, Tyler, tell me why you think perhaps Matt Rhule would want to come back, or just maybe you agree with me. I don't know.
No, it is totally beyond me. College coaches,
Okay.
well, all coaches really, who get fired and, you know, get these massive buyouts, who want to go back into coaching, it makes no sense to me. If someone paid me $40 million to not work, you know what I would do? Not work. I would just go to the beach and enjoy it. But college coaches are a different breed, man. They live and die by it. They like spending 20 out of 24 hours locked up in their office watching film. So I don't know. Maybe Matt Rhule takes some time off. Maybe he gets back into it right away, because I think there is something to be said about these coaches and just the nature of the business, and having that the way they live their life is just different than you and I. It just is. And it might not make sense to us, but Matt Rhule is certainly going to have a lot of options if he does want to get back into coaching. I think that's for sure.
I think that's a really good point to make about what they do, but I'm also going to point out, don't nobody pick out your, you pick out your clothes? No, somebody else does that. You know what you're wearing to work every day. You have the one job. You don't pay the mortgage. You don't pay the light bill. You don't take people to school. You don't pick people up from school. You don't arrange daycare. I can keep going here, right? As a quasi stepdad, I got feelings about how much we want to talk about how different the job is for some folks that work in professional sports or even professional athletes. But I will give this much to Matt Rhule. You got a hobby, dog. I know you do, because you're human. Go chase that hobby. Maybe you want to be like Paul Newman. You want to get in a Datsun and you want to go win a national title racing. I don't know. But see that there's more to life, perhaps, right now than coaching football. Maybe that's it. Tyler, do we have anything else left on the rundown today?
Nope, that's it. All I was going to say was Matt Rhule might go to one school car pickup line, do that one time, be like, all right, I'm getting back into coaching. Retirement was fun. You can't pay me $40 million to do this. But that's it. That's all the questions we had.
See, Tyler went fishing, but I'm not going to bite. I'm going to leave that right where it is and say that's going to do it for this episode of the #1 college football show. My thanks as always to our lead producer, Tyler Wojak, joining me on the mailbag every week. Please continue to submit your questions because, my goodness, you guys answered the bell. We came after you. We said you're not doing your part, helping us create the content that you want us to make, and you answered this week. Full stop. That's awesome. Please continue to do that. Keep sending us your questions, your comments, your concerns about this college football season as we're getting closer and closer to finding out who is a national champ and who is not. My thanks to senior producer, Catherine Donnelly. Our director is Kyle Holly. Our social media maven is Javion Duncan. Our lead of screening is Rachel Cohn, and I'm the host, RJ. We will see y'all live from Ann Arbor, Michigan on Saturday night. Deuces.